order at 6:30 on Tuesday, March 17th. I would also like to make a motion to have Dylan Copita be the vice chair of the finance committee. So this meeting in full.
Whoa.
This meeting.
Supposed to be for this meeting. Go ahead.
Sneaking that in there,
Yeah.
a little bait and switch here.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, Joe Elias from
All right.
McCall.
All right, so that way if I go back and forth meetings, we still have a chair.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, if you were unavailable at some point and we needed to meet without you, or y'all needed to
Yeah.
meet without you,
Yeah.
you'd have the ability to do so. All right, Dan, you are online. I see your camera on. Wonderful.
I'm going to Crystal's not coming.
Yeah, Crystal, I
She's
don't.
in South County.
She's in South County, I believe, is the plan. Yeah. Alrighty. So I will also call to order the select board. We have quorum with me and Dan. The time is 6:31. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let me get the agenda pulled up.
I'm not sure what happened, I can't hear who's speaking. I don't know if that's true for the rest.
No one is speaking.
That's just because I'm being very quiet right now. I know that's
Okay.
a rare thing for me. Just give us a second. Becky's finishing up outside. She'll be in a second. She's on with Crystal, and then we'll get ourselves started. Thank you everyone for your patience.
Okay, perfect, yeah, because I heard Becky and then it stopped, so that was all good, thanks.
A very fair concern, and thank you for checking us, especially since a couple days ago we did in fact have audio issues, and we had already started, but no one was paying attention to us, so I appreciate that again. Thank you.
I was like, do I raise my hand? And I was like, I'm just going to come up.
Always just be like, we can't hear it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what's happening.
It was.
But that's like last time when Crystal was talking about the floodplain, I missed.
Are we expecting a band? Sit in the front rows?
I don't know.
Alrighty.
Hello.
Welcome. So both committees have called ourselves to order, so we are ready to go when you are.
And I'm gonna get help putting this together. So,
Do you want to hand those to me and I'll take care of that while you get started?
sure.
You know, I'm not sure why I'm way down here.
All right, great.
Slide over. I'm not standing today. Alright.
Okay, so we'll just do this way. Sorry. It did all the revenues together, so we'll just keep those separate.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 2 pages. Stapled together.
Yep.
And I'll take that one. Thank you.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. This is a very exciting budget year. So tonight we're going to review some of the changes that have been made, but most of all, I think it's important to talk through where we're at on the revenue side, which Dylan did at the beginning of the meeting yesterday. This report shows us a good, a solid estimate of the 2 holes. There was, with some additions, we are now over 500,000 for the smallest hole, not by a lot. We will be Crystal will be calling in from the meeting. She is at the CMS, the EMS meeting with South County right now, and they are reviewing their budget. I have learned that their budget has gone down some. And she will learn at the meeting if the committee will vote to support the cuts that are in the budget. She was uncertain, not certain what they were. So that's another possible area that will be cut. I think one thing we need to do tonight is go through the items on the budget that are things that we can put off and delay or not do this year. We don't have a lot, but the one that Dylan was bringing up, the OPEB, is on the table for this year. And I'd like to see if there's any other areas that people feel might have some breathing room.
I have a couple of questions. Do you have this digitally? There was feedback that we got last night.
Yes.
Where people online couldn't see what we were talking about. Is it able to be available to the people that are zooming in as well?
If we put it up
Yeah. Is
on
that
the screen, yeah, let's do that. If we can make that work.
okay?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. My machine is problematic to do that with because I'm the host.
Yeah.
I'm wondering,
Do you want to join the meeting on Zoom and then share it? Vice chair.
I would do it because I'm gonna go
Yeah, yeah.
back and forth, so that's
Okay.
probably not great.
Can you add it as an attachment in the chat room? That way people can open it.
It may not be permissioned.
No,
Yeah, I don't think we have it on this particular
Yeah,
computer
we-
here.
the chat function, I just don't know.
Becky, did you email this?
I will do that right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question. Thanks. You should be able to look in the Zoom. Nathan, do you have the? I had difficulty getting in last week.
Do you need the code?
Yeah, what's the
It's
Zoom?
612-780-253.
612-780-253.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Darius, it's great to see you here. I don't know, Nathan, would you want to ask Darius for an update as we get this up?
Yeah, we're just trying to, as I'm sure you guys are now aware, we're trying to figure out how to balance our budget and more specifically how to present two budgets, one of which is contingent on an override or, how to navigate that. And we understand that you're voting on the final budget soon. Is it next Tuesday, is that correct?
26, yep.
Okay, and my understanding is that you're only gonna vote on one budget as that is the only thing you're allowed to do.
Correct.
Correct. Is that budget, and maybe you could be welcome to say, we're not allowed to say that or whatever, is that budget the budget that we're most recently been shown, which is the 9.9 something or
Correct.
other? Okay. Great.
The 9.98, after we reduced it, just under 300,000.
Okay. So there was some discussion yesterday. The reason that we asked you to come in was we wanted to make sure that the town and the schools were sort of on the same page about the different paths ahead of us. And preparing for what a failed override would mean for the school and for the town, and how to navigate setting your budget if we do have a failed override, given that the voted budget was for a number that's not going to be doable without an override. So that's sort of the conversation we wanted to have. Was there anything that I'm missing? I know that you guys had some questions as well.
So I prepared a handout for you folks on what we did to get to 9.9 and what we would have to do to get to level funded. If that makes sense, in the sense of what positions, what reductions within the school would have to occur. And these are, I want to say theoretical in the sense of that we would have to look at the exact amount and then try to shift things around. And I didn't prioritize the last package because it's not fair to the employees in those positions. But to have people have a sense of when we say we're going into programmatic changes, it would be significant. So,
Thank you very much.
so if you look at draft 1, that's where we started off at where our needs were. Draft 2 is where we reduced it down to try to get it within I don't have enough for everyone, but if you want to share with the neighbor next to you. Draft 2 is where we got it down to 9.98, and that reducing, combining classrooms that I think is definitely doable. Moving IA allocations from working in classrooms to one-on-one needs. We did get a rural aid that we were applying to an out-of-district placement back into this budget because the parameters of the placement changed. And we're freezing the budget right now to recuperate. We were hoping to recoup just over 15,000, but we had to spend 10,000 on a new fire panel this month. And so we're now down to about 7,000 there. So the next round, if the override doesn't go through, and this is in no particular order, we'd have to look at reducing our specials, 2 days a week art, 4 days a week music, the library position. We also would have to reduce our school adjustment counselor, our math interventionist, and an instructional assistant, which we don't know where we'll pull from, but that kind of rounds out the number to get to a level service budget, not level funded budget. So, and I kind of wrote in, after each one what effects that have. I wouldn't know what we would do if we eliminated the arts, in the sense of that teachers need to have prep periods, and so we'd have to figure out a way to cover their classes for them to have contractual preps, let alone the loss of the arts, but we will just pretend that's not the biggest thing on the ticket there. The school adjustment counselor, we have a lot of students who have needs in direct counseling. That will have to be reduced and taken on by our school psychologists, and students in crisis will have to be handled by other staff members. Our math interventionist, it really works on early intervention in math services. Whenever you lose interventionists, you increase your IEPs in the school district, so then we would have more required mandated services. And then the instructional assistant position is kind of I don't know where we're going to pull it from, but you gotta make the cuts. We gotta make the cuts. So yeah, it's significant, and yeah, I think it's really spells the picture that we're into the meat of the school by having to reduce down. If the override doesn't pass, we're able to get some funding, some growth. Then we'll have to, we're gonna have to allocate put our priorities what affects students the least and fits where the school's goals are. So.
And what were you saying before that a lot of the IA positions are funded from other sources than from the general budget? Are there IA positions funded from the general budget that you're going to be able
Yes,
to?
these are budget funded from the general budget. There are IA positions that can be funded from other things. A lot of those are one-to-one IAs is kind of how we'll break those off. And when I say one-to-one IAs, so if a student has an IEP, an individual education plan that says that they need a one-to-one services, we are mandated by law to provide that. Part of our big increase this year is the needs of the residents of our town has gone up, and we're mandated to provide them. So we had just under 8% growth on that alone, which is, I don't want to say absurd, I use the word absurdly high. I've never seen it in any of the elementary schools grow like that in 1 year. It is just a a need that doesn't usually hit a school this size in 1 year. And, Sunderland's been picked to have that need. So, we will provide those services to the students as we are required to. But it does require us, if we don't have the increased budget, to cut elsewhere to meet the students in a different capacity. I think there's a general feeling, people feel, where's the fairness in that? Where's the, why doesn't the state, step in and help out and that kind of stuff? There are different things that do happen with circuit breaker where the state does step in, but not because of the size of our school and the size of increased costs and stuff, it just doesn't meet the same needs. And so I know everybody, if you read the paper, beating the drum of rural aid, that's just one aid thing coming from the state that's the quickest thing we can use to help offset our budgets. But there's a lot of other problems within special education, special ed reimbursement from the state that schools that have these huge ups and downs have trouble absorbing. And there are things, I have to bring my special ed director in to explain the different patterns of funding that there's emergency funding that you can apply for that, but it doesn't make up for the massive growth that we've had based on need. And it's not need that we assess and then apply, it's based on teams and assessments that made by schools that students are coming from to us. And not through school choice. I know it's another argument that's out there. These are students that are our residents that we have to provide for. So any questions on anything about the school budget and that kind of thing? But I was told to kind of, and so I hope I met what I was requested, as I understood, it's like show what it would be if the override doesn't pass and we're level funded from last year. And so that would be, that'd be the grouping that would be there.
Devastating is the word that I would use for that.
What's that?
Devastating is the word I would
Yeah,
use.
yeah, no, it definitely have a negative impact on the programming we provide. That is for darn sure.
And as we've talked about before, a lot of these cuts are things where it may help the budget this year, but then have more students needing IEP needs because we don't have the math intervention we need, more, a whole bunch of other secondary effects end up happening.
You have a double impact. So if you go back to 2009 when the override failed, what we had at that point, I was an administrator but not directly involved with the ongoings. But what happened, as we saw as a ripple effect, is people will then choose out, right? Those with means will go to a different school that if the arts are important or some of these other things. Or with any of these reductions, you're going to have outcomes to that other people may choose a different school to do that. And so we saw that happen in 2009 where we had more than a handful of families that choiced out and then stayed out, never came back. So we never got them back into our system and even back into Frontier later on. So you'll be paying that price of that child going out, or if they go to charter, so increase that cost if they go to charter. If they go to private, that would be the lucky thing because we wouldn't have to pay for that. But it also, the equity within your own community, because only with people with means are going to be able to leave, are going to be able to drive their child daily out of town. And so, not only, but it's far easier with those people with means to be able to do that. So it's just kind of one of those things that's kind of a ripple effect to when a school has to do this kind of cuts is you got to look at that as well. So there's an investment that gets lost there as well. So
the only good thing now is a lot of the schools are having trouble. I mean, that's kind of horrible to say, but since it's not just Sunderland we're having a terrible time, but other towns aren't having a good time either. So hopefully people will stay in their communities.
Or hopefully it's
Support them.
widespread enough to get some traction
Yeah.
in Boston to make a change because it's not working great right now. Any questions from the Finance Committee for Darius on what he presented or where we stand?
I have a process question. So you vote next Tuesday on the budget draft 2.
Yep.
But you don't vote on budget draft 3.
correct.
So we would go to town meeting with budget draft 1, then an override. If town meeting then voted not to have a budget with an override, we would have to go back to the school and or either not to have an override, or we do vote for an override and we fail an override, then we would go back to the school committee and then we'd have to vote on another. But
The failed override would come with it a dollar amount that we're giving the school. Whatever it is, we have to pick one.
so we'd have to
So
pick,
it would be
so
pick
we'd
a
have to
number,
put.
And
we'd
maybe
pick-
maybe it's
yeah.
the number that, maybe it's level funded, maybe it's, I don't know, that's a discussion that we have to have over the next 2 weeks is figure out what that number is. But whatever that number is, that's what gets passed by town, that's what we give to Darius, and then the school committee has to then go back and meet and figure out, this is the money we have, what do we do?
Yeah, so my understanding is the school committee gives the recommendation for their budget for the year, and it goes before the town. And if the town doesn't vote the override, they're basically rejecting the school committee's budget.
Yeah.
And so whatever the budget after that, school committee's not approving that budget, if it fits the budget's been approved by the town. We would then just have to reassess how we're going to, you know, this piece of paper, like how are we going to use the resources, you know, how we're
So
going to
we
use the
set
funding.
so we set the budget back to you if, so you don't have to vote on what we give back to you, I guess is what I'm saying, you just have to take it.
My and please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the room, but my understanding is that it's just basically the budget is rejected, the school committee's budget is rejected by the town. And unless the town's redoing all of its budget and having another town meeting to pass a budget,
No, it would just be the contingent budget, and so, again, my understanding is not 100% on this, but my understanding is that we're just setting the dollar amount. How the school uses it is up to Darius and the school committee to hash out, and I don't know how that works, so I don't really need to know how that works, but we would just be setting a dollar amount, the town would be setting a dollar amount, and then it would be up to them to figure out how to fit all these pieces together to make that dollar amount work. Hopefully we won't get there, but we do have to have a number in the budget for what happens if override fails. All right, anything else from Finance Committee? Or Dan, do you have anything you want to ask? Great.
No, just what's the Sunderland's portion of the 9.9? That's all.
Oh, this is for those elementary schools, so this is 100% us.
Okay. Okay.
Unless you can figure out a way to shift part of that to other towns.
I'll try.
Yeah.
I don't know guarantees on that.
Wheatley's having a great year this year. All right, I don't have any other questions. Becky, anything you want to ask while they're here?
So the rural aid got cut, but what, did other aid get cut as well?
Well, I mean, the state budgeting and how it's using Chapter 70, we're in a hold harmless position with the state, which means we're not only getting the price per pupil increase and no other real growth. So those are your two major funding sources. So, I mean, you can see from the federal level that they're expecting Title I to be cut by 15%. That'll have some small effect, but you know, we're not a huge Title I school. So, you know, it's small chips away, but the fact of the rural aid kind of being an offset to the Chapter 70, lack of growth in Chapter 70, which hasn't grown in years. And every year the percentage of that falls more and more on the taxpayer, you know, and that's what all the noise is about in the state right now from the number of communities that aren't seeing growth for Chapter 70 funding. So. And I think you're kind of seeing the trickle down as the schools to the north of us have maybe have seen this a couple years prior to us, where their budgets got hit even earlier due to their reduced enrollment and revenue coming in. So, but that's kind of the major thing. There's no other like grants out there that are bailing out schools.
In what ways have those schools that are a couple years ahead pivoted? Is there any lessons to be learned of things to do or avoid or think about if those trends continue down this way?
I think everybody's doing the best they can. I don't think there's a model out there that's, you know, I think a lot of the small towns are running on, I hate to say call it luck, but, you know, there was ESSER money for a while that bailed out those towns, you know, or ARPA money, sorry, ESSER's in my world, ARPA's in your world. I mean, that made a lot of these small communities kind of survive another 5 years when they could see the cliff coming. I don't know what the answer is. You know, the rural aid was the answer. There was rural aid coming in, And a lot of those communities used rural aid in the year it's coming. We try not to use it in the year that we're receiving it, because if we reduce it, then we have to reduce your budget. And that happened to some of the I call them our northern communities, but they're smaller, the ones in the hills, because they had to apply, and you really shouldn't be using it to offset your budget, but you do what you have to do. Yeah, and, they used ARPA money or ESSER money to pay for positions to get through several years, and then had a result in that. We tried not to do that, so that's again why you see us last a little longer. And this year is particularly, if we were on growth alone of the budget of our contractual obligation to our staff and such, it wouldn't have been that bad a year. I mean, it would have been a little bit higher, but it is just really unprecedented, the amount of need that is in our community right now. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
I have one more question. What is the total number of students in the K through 6 school this year, give or take the ones who left or whatever in the middle?
149 pre-K through 6.
149, and then it's
But they're not
expected
all
next year
Sunderland.
to be about the same?
Yes, exactly the same, but they're not all Sunderland residents. We don't get state aid for all of them. Some of them are school choice.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the total number. Actually, do you know how many school choice? Can we?
25.
Because that's 25. Okay. I've heard some crazy numbers, and I'm like, I just know that's not true. So it'd be nice to have that out there.
Yeah, 25 is, just said, what did you say, 146?
149?
149. With everybody includes 172.
That's with the pre-K.
That's with pre-K.
Anything else from friends?
Now, are there any updates? I know different topics lately on Frontier. I know we're going to cover this. Is there more to say there in terms of timelines or updates or things we should think about and consider?
Well, Frontier, I think, Sunderland got, as it goes, you got hit at Frontier the same year you're having other issues. Your enrollment is up, not by a lot, but everybody else has gone down. So your assessment got hit hard there. I think it's, looking ahead, it looks like it's going to happen to you next year as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, Frontier did, reduce its budget by $400,000, including 7 positions, and also reduced the capital assessment and took that off the plate of the town as well, and used rural aid to pay for the capital assessment. So, the committee, for the first time in many years, has reduced and came in at a rather not extremely high spot. It came in just over 4 originally. So whatever the planning is going to be, it's going to have to be more than a 1-year plan. Another reason for the override, because if it doesn't go through this year, you're going to be in a tough spot again. And I don't know where the state is looking at Sunderland with its wealth index, in the sense of why they're saying the assessment's higher. Are you receiving more money? Or you have higher incomes, or assessments, values, that kind of stuff. That's the area I don't get in the weeds of.
I think we're still capped at 82.5%, so I don't think. I think we're still capped at 82.5% of foundation budget, so I don't think that's factoring in.
Okay.
I think it's more about, and you already touched on this, the number of students to be educated, school choice or not, just native student population growing.
Yeah.
That's pushing some of those foundation budgets up. And then the percentage, because with the Frontier percentage of assessment is also growing, so it's kind of double whammy.
It's really nice that we have kids and we're not closing schools because like some of the other towns.
We're investing in educating more kids. Like this, it's money, it's expensive, but there is a good opportunity and a good outcome in doing that. And I appreciate, and we appreciate the work that you and the school committee have done at both levels of Frontier and here at Sunderland.
Thank you very much for coming.
All right.
We wish we could be under better circumstances. We'll have to do that off cycle. Talk about some fun stuff.
Sure.
All right. What do we have next?
We have news from Crystal in the South County EMS meeting. They have, they have voted a new number. their old number, I just erased, yeah, I think it was 367,000, and the new number is 315,527.
And that's the total, and so ours would be 27% of that or something like that, or is that our part?
That's our part.
That's our part, okay. Okay, which actually in this case is a good thing because it means that we take that whole $50,000 and not just getting the quarter back. Okay, so yeah, that's $52,000. That will help.
But I have to tell you that in the budget yesterday, what was in the 5%, what was in the 27 was 210,000 because it was the prior year budget.
Right.
And so we
This is
don't
actually
get the
going
full,
up.
yeah.
Yes, gotcha.
It's still a big increase.
Yeah,
It's still a big increase,
but
but we're closer to being at the 516,000. We're not, we're over 500 now, but
okay.
the budget cap.
I'm going to leave the meeting since we have quorum, and so I can go to vote on the library's budget, approving their budgets, and then I'll come back. So Dylan, you're on.
All right. So that's great news that it came down. Sad news that we can't count it as much of a win on the numbers as we'd like to. So that brings us on this sheet here. We have South County is where on this sheet?
129.
It's at the end of the fire.
End of the fire. South County, there we go.
Would you like me to share this now that
Yes.
we're going to talk about this?
Great, thank you.
I'm seeing 361 in this sheet.
361, not 367.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that sheet didn't have it. Crystal just called, she just texted me during.
No, I
the
mean that
meeting.
this isn't showing the 215. This is
Oh,
showing.
but it's, if you look in the two other columns.
What's it going?
Yeah.
Still can you give us your heroes and 360?
Oh, I corrected it.
I think you already corrected yourself.
I
You're
already
good there.
corrected.
Yesterday you
I was
weren't,
just
but
telling
today-
you, yeah, I corrected it for this meeting.
No, can you close
Oh,
that?
yeah.
End of
Yeah.
whatever that now?
Oh, sorry.
If you click on Zoom, it will just go away.
There we go. Thanks. Close this. Alrighty.
So we're talking South County EMS.
So South County EMS, and that is line 129 if you're looking at this sheet. So it looks like what we're going to do is our FY 27, the three lines for FY 27, the flat 5%, 20%. Those three lines, instead of being 361, 758, are going to be 315, 527. 15, 527. Okay. So that is within about $300 of being exactly $50,000. So that is a help. So coming back down, instead of 262, we're looking at more like, or sorry, 562, we're looking more like 512 for our not passing the override gap. And then for our 5%, we're at 650. So both of those are a bit closer. All right, and this has the schools at the 390, 3.951,
Which is their 9.9.
which that's their 5% though. Their new 20%, which in this case is actually a flat budget, but for them going up 18% and then coming down 18% is their 20% reduction. They're saying they're taking another 359,000 off of that.
Yep.
So if the override doesn't pass, we're not looking at 512, we're looking at 170. So if the override doesn't pass and we force the school to do these cuts and we have all of the departments do the cuts that they presented to us, we would only have to put the 170,000 of free cash in to be able to balance it. We'd be losing half of our school and half of everything else, but we have a number that we're passing and we're able to
Now it's
not
time
go
to,
bankrupt.
now it's time to articulate all the things that we're gonna lose.
Yes. All right, so take off, no, what was the number again? They said 359. 359. So 153,000 is give or take a couple $100.
I think I put that number in already though.
Which number?
The lower school number.
You have the, so
But we have to
you
reduce-
have the 5% number in
Okay.
both the 5 and 20 columns, and the 5%
Oh,
number
and the
is their
20 is the
their draft
revenue
2,
side. Okay.
which is the 9.98%. Their completely flat one is going to be taking 359 off of that 3.951.
Yep.
So so their new number is going to be 3.595. If the override doesn't pass and, they're making cuts to the things they said before. All right. So the big question that we are still trying to answer is, what is our override percentage that we are going to try to hit? And it sounds like with the reduction to the South County budget, is the South County Senior Center numbers accurate here? Current for what they're
Asking.
currently asking for, okay.
Because we haven't had the discussion. And,
Okay, so given that, it looks like 650,000 is the gap we have right now if we were to go ahead with a 5% reduction, or the numbers we got in from folks for the 5% reduction, and would then need an override to fill that gap. We could put 250,000 of free cash into that. That is approximately what we've been putting in the last bunch of years. I always like to put less in, but that is a number we couldn't survive in, and that would leave us with needing $400,000 in order to be able to get up to a 5% reduced budget, if that's the goal that we're looking at.
Well, I mean, remember that the 5% is off of the 26 budget, so it's kind of like an 8%. I think we should see and run the numbers on the full budget request, which
No,
has-
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why having these numbers helps us figure out what does a 4% override look like, what does a 6% override look like, what does a 8% override look like.
Because the percentage points between, even with an override, we're taking significant cuts in both scenarios, and the margin between that and just trying to fund an override to get to what we think is a reasonable budget for the town, it's very small. It's gonna be like $60 per household difference,
So just so we are all conceptualizing this the same, if we're looking at our pre-increase budget being $11.6 million, that means that every percentage that we're asking for in override is $116,000 of money. So if we're asking for $400,000, that's a 3.6% override. If we're asking for $700,000, that's a 6% override.
I'm not sure that's right, because the override's on the basis of the tax, which is not 100% of the revenue.
You are right, thank you.
So we need to go back to the revenue.
Can we look at the revenue numbers for a second, so we can figure out what that number is?
1%. So your proposed levy before debt exclusion is 7.689 million.
Okay.
So 2.5%, which is what we're doing anyway, is, let's just say $200,000.
So each 2.5% is 200. Well, that's a number that we can work with. Okay. So if we needed to do 400,000, we'd be looking at a 5% override for 400,000. $750,000 would be 6% override. Okay. And those numbers aren't ridiculous. Like when we started this, we were talking about double-digit override numbers.
Can I ask just a clarifying question? So
Yes.
when you say X% override, you mean that is the amount above the 2.5, or
Yes.
that is the, right? So I just want to make sure we're always saying it that way, because
Yes, no, and
So
that is a
6
very
is
good
really
point.
8.5.
When I say when we're talking about override, we're talking about the
Over the
over
2.5%.
2.5%. So already raising 2.5%.
okay.
That's a foregone conclusion for this budget.
I just want to clarify for myself.
No, absolutely,
and
that is a good
else.
point, especially with members of the public both here and watching from home. So
what we, if, again, let's say we're looking at $750,000, that'd be 6% override, 2.5%, you know, allowed growth. So a total of 8.5% that people will be seeing increase from year over year.
And are the revenue numbers at the bottom of 10.935, that includes the 2.5%?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
includes
Yeah.
it, with no like free cash estimates that we would.
Right, no cash.
Yeah.
So it's,
It's local receipts plus
Right,
state aid plus,
yeah.
plus our.
So we would mark the percentage off of the total revenue or the percentage off of the
It would,
Okay,
yeah,
so
we
Because
could get up
that's
to
what you're
7.
actually increasing.
Okay,
I'd love to be able to say
Yeah,
that the town
okay.
would vote on this state giving us more money. That'd be amazing,
okay.
but no. Okay, so that's helpful for us to be able to conceptualize $200,000 being about 2.5%.
I would say there's a few headwinds in my mind from the numbers we're looking at in the 5% case, thinking ahead, right? One is, I think it's challenging it to consistently utilize $250,000 of free cash. I am concerned, we talked about this last time, about if that run rate is sustainable. I know we talked about the police budget, and I think we have the full 5% reduction, but I know a number of us were a little bit concerned about that full shift. And so there might be some additional money that we need to think about there. And also there's just a couple of headwinds, and Darius mentioned one, like our share of Frontier is going to go up again next year, almost certainly. Obviously, kids are going to bounce around and move in and move out, so you don't know, but it's tracking as though the increase won't be as big as this year, but it will increase one more time, and then from there starts to stabilize. So, you know, those are just three things. It's hard to put a dollar on it. I mean, the police one, we could work with the chief and put a dollar on that. The other two are hard to put a dollar on, but those are three headwinds to me from that 5% case and solving for that override that makes me think it might end up being a little bigger.
Right, and then the likelihood of going into another override next year is drastically increased. So it's, maybe we could avoid 2 years of overrides if we pass an override this year that can kind of get us through.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, plan for 2 years.
Because, I mean, if we do the 5%, we're gonna be at the override situation again next year.
Absolutely.
And then how much can the town tolerate 2 of those in a year?
Well, and the reality is, like, even paying back from any particular, school or department, like, the big chunks of our expense budget, I feel pretty comfortable saying are gonna grow faster than our big chunks of our revenue budget.
Yeah.
Just generally speaking, if you look at a 2.5 increase and state aid increases, like, if we're getting 3% out of those two, I think we're pretty lucky, and that's a huge piece of our revenue pie. And so on top of the work we need to do here, and hopefully the investment the town will be willing to make in some of these changes, we need to really be thinking about revenue sources. This can't just be, we can't cut our way to this being structurally balanced. And so, there's gonna be a lot of work, and we're all gonna be doing it, but it's just something I'm thinking about too.
Yeah.
Right, and our primary request without the 5% cut, which remind everybody that's a 5% cut to the 26
Last year.
numbers. We also, in those numbers, have already accounted for the substantial reductions in the school budget in that number. So it's not, that's even more than the 5%. So, and then, the narratives are, we're gonna have to cut down shifts for the police officers, we're gonna have to do all kinds of things to be able to even meet that number, which also will need to have an override to do.
So one of the things we had also discussed in the last, I don't think it was in the last time, 3 times ago maybe, was that different departments have different asks because their budgets grew at different rates. And so, like, saying 5% under last year's budget for a department that has no change, like the assessors or something like that, maybe that's that example, but just one of the departments that doesn't have a lot of personnel, so there's not a lot of growth there, doesn't have a lot of insurance, doesn't have a lot of material costs, doesn't have whatever, is different than, like, the school, for example, which has this huge driver. And so saying that everybody's getting 5% less than last year already isn't even going to work. That's not even what they already brought us, because there's no way that they can even go to that. He brought us just like flat budget, which is even that is a horrendous cut. And so I don't think that we're going to be able to just say, okay, everybody gets 5% less than last year. There's going to have to be more of these departments get 5% less than last year, and these departments get 3% more than last year, but that's still a giant cut from where they came from.
Right.
What I would like to see us doing, this is just throwing a number out, is rather than saying 5% of last year's budget, say 5% less than what you asked for this year. Because that means that the ones that had to have the bigger increases are still gonna come out a little bit higher than the ones that didn't. And then that's closer to, you know, because most departments are coming up by 3%, that means that they're only having to go down 2 from, they're having to go down 5, or sorry, they're going to have to go down 5 instead of going down 8%.
So what's the delta on that?
Well, we can go to our first budget.
Because not all of them are gonna drop, like only certain ones will drop from their 5%.
Yes. So if we go to our 2027 budget requests without the 5 or 20, that's the 1.027 million underage. So that would be the 11.962 times 0.95.
No, because not all of them would drop from there, right? Like there's certain departments that you do that to,
Yeah.
but not all of them.
Right, there's a lot of line items I was able to do that to, but there were things like the assessors, the reval, the election dollars.
Well, even like the schools aren't impacted by that at all, right? The school number is in the 11.9 and in the 11.6 and the 11.4, but it doesn't change.
That's true. They've already
They've already done that. In the
Right.
far one
Yeah.
it does, there's that
Yeah.
other scenario that he just gave us, but.
Okay.
So we can do that math, but I don't know. off the top of my head what that
I
is.
thought that was a good target, and then up and down, you know, move things around a little bit, but
It's just hard because if someone had something in their budget for an increase for this year, because they wanted to do something new, it was time to do something new, like I get that, but like all the plans for next year are shot.
yeah.
And so like, I don't know how to preference
Yeah.
someone who had a planned initiative or growth versus a budget who didn't. Because if you do it one way, you're helping one of them. If you do it the other way, you're hurting the other one less. It's like,
And I would say the majority is just basic ethical cost of living increases and rising insurance costs is the main driver between the differences from last year.
There's also something confusing. There was a question in the chat.
I can't
I think
see.
that was Wendy. Here, let's see what Wendy had to say. If memory serves me right, there are added costs to cutting positions such as unemployment. Scott is not in to be able to elaborate more.
And I did add a little bit to unemployment.
That is a fair point that,
I'm going to stop sharing this for a moment, but I can put it back up if we get back into a line.
yep. That is a fair point. So I guess the question is, which side do we want to come on? Do we want to go budget by budget and decide ourselves how we're going to, where we're going to draw the line on that budget, what we're going to give them, and then get to the end and add that all up and say, well, there's our target for the override? Or are we going to try to figure out a rubric by which to do a sweeping thing and then go through and make minor adjustments and?
Well, I mean, to some extent, we did that last night, right? We went through the 5% budgets, and I know the one that sticks out in my mind was the police budget. There seemed to be some interest more in doing what you're talking about on that budget. The other ones, it seemed like, and I don't know if all of them, but many of the other ones, it seemed like this is unfortunately a 5% cut from last year's budget that we perhaps have to take in order to get to an override that we feel is reasonable. But I'm new to this, so please, you know.
Unfortunately, we all
Right.
Okay.
The biggest dollars, I mean, we all know is the, you know, the senior center and the schools, right? All the other items aren't like jumping out at me as radical changes from their FY26 budget to begin with, so.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, yeah, I had moved the unemployment from 6,000 to 12,000, and then reduced it by 5% and 20%. I mean, from the prior year, so.
And I see in the 5 and 20% scenarios, the OPEB funding is out. So just so everybody, like that's Whether we want to do that or not, that's what's in those numbers we're looking at right now as it is. So the contribution is not in there for the 5% and 20% scenarios.
Which doesn't really affect their budget, it just affects how much free
Free
cash
cash,
is left over
exactly.
for either putting in the budget or for next
Well,
year.
because there's 0 on free cash right now, it does impact the deficit,
Yeah.
right? If it were still in there and we took it out, so that's why I want to make sure everyone's.
No, that's, thank you for pointing out, yeah. So, going to the other extreme of overrides, we could in theory ask for an override for the full requested budget that was asked. It would be a larger dollar amount by quite a bit, but we could potentially go up to that side of things. And just to run the numbers so we know what that would look like, so we have an idea of what our bounds are for what we're asking for here. That would be a $1.02 million increase.
Well, it's slightly less because
It's
of
like
the,
970.
it's 981 because of the reduction in the South County EMS.
Thank you.
So it's 981,267.
981.
And then the middle number is 654,840. But is there a reason that we wouldn't, because I know we talked a little bit last night about maybe offering 2 options.
We just were worried about that cannibalizing one of the 2.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're gonna look at that original budget with the 1027, it's not just the reduction there is the possibility of the OPEB reduction, because that still is in that number.
That's true, so that could come down to another 50
Yeah.
in theory. Okay.
So 930.
Right,
So let's use 930 as our, we could put 250 of cash, or we could take OPEB out. If we were to add 250 in cash, that would bring us down to 680.
Yep.
Yep.
680 is a 8.1%, I think. My math is maybe a little off, but in the 7.5 to 8.5 range of an override in order to make that work.
That
So we
includes
get,
the 2.5.
including the 2.5, not including 2.5, so 2.5% plus, we'll just call it 8%.
right.
Would be that override. If we were gonna say, hey, this is what's actually gonna cost to fund the town, this is what the department said, no, we're not willing to make cuts unless the town says we have to. I think there's obviously some room to bring that down,
Yeah.
but that's that number there.
Yeah.
Now, if we then add in, because that, it has the school with their original number, right? Or is that the, no, that's already going
Yeah.
down to the.
Yeah, that's already there.
Okay, darn, I was hoping that wasn't that. So.
No, that hope is not there.
Um,
Sorry.
But didn't Darius say that the frontier budget came down a little bit also?
No, the frontier budget is here. It did come
It
down,
went down,
but
but
it's
our
here.
allocation went up.
I think what we have.
So the number here is accurate though.
Jess, you want to weigh in?
Do you want me to clarify that? There was going to be a $29,000 capital assessment, which has come off the frontier budget.
Right,
That's what.
that's what it was, okay, thank you. Thank you.
So
It doesn't actually help this budget, but does help the town overall,
So the 2,802,995, that's what we're saying is our good.
Yeah, that should be our number across the board for those 3 there, yeah.
So, I don't know how to raise my hand on the computer, I got my hand up in my hand.
Go ahead.
Can I check? Yeah, just a side note, and Scott brought up last night, so I looked into it a little bit today. And we're talking all macro right now. When do we talk a little micro about how this affects kind of the average taxpayer homeowner? Do we want to talk about that now or put it on the side? But I'm just thinking what 8% means in terms of cash increase per household versus what 5% means. And I think that's important when we look at, people as they look at this, what is it actually going to cost them?
Do we have the numbers of what each percentage would cost? I don't have it in
I
front
don't,
of me.
I'm afraid I don't.
Yeah, no, I looked it up. I mean, the average median tax for Sunderland is about $5,105 for the median range. And so if you take a 10% raise of that would be $500 a year, which would be, about, divide that by 12, you're talking $40-some a month, versus a 5%, which would be half of that. So I think that's important, when it comes up at town meeting too. What's the actual cost? We can throw big numbers around for the town, hundreds of thousands of dollars. What's it going to mean to each individual person?
So the average would be around $400 a year.
Yep, 8% would be $400 a year. Yep.
That's the median. That was the median, not the mean. I didn't,
Yep.
but I could look up the mean.
But plus or minus some percentage, it's a ballpark, so people know that we're talking about a couple $100, not a couple $1,000 or a couple $1,000.
And if we
Right.
go do.
Yeah, the fear is always, is it gonna happen every year? That's what usually overrides get voted down. It's like, okay, we're gonna do that one now, and then another one next year, and then another one next year. So I like what you guys were talking about, like maybe a little bit higher this year, anticipating we won't have to do it next year. But
Yeah.
that's a dangerous web to weave too, because what if we have to do another one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should provide guarantees, but the differential with seeing losses in real services to the town would equate to $100 difference possibly per household.
Right.
To do
Right.
all the cuts we're saying. And I know money is important and needed by everybody, but $100 difference to what a compromise with reduced services for the whole town, is that worth it? To that, rather than just going for the full percentage.
Right, I think that's an excellent point, and that's what people need to, that's what people care about. What's it gonna cost out of my wallet?
Yeah.
And I'm also, and obviously we've been talking about this a lot, but I'm also very concerned with not making any cuts that in the long run add expense or reduce revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Like we were
we
talking
can't
last
afford
night
that.
Like you're talking last night with the police officer and training.
Yeah.
You know, that's a great example of something where it's gonna come back to bite us. But, you know, Darius was also talking about a very good point about school choice also, is that we could save money in the school budget and next year have 3 less school choice kids coming in, bringing money into town, and 6 more going out, and have that swing just eat up, you know, we could have art, instead we now have kids going to different school and the budget's the same, you know, and we've lost art for nothing at that point.
Yeah, and we don't get the police officer that we've invested in, and we have to stop night shifts.
Right, and then when you start breaking it out to, not everyone, but probably the vast majority of people have a mortgage, and it's a monthly payment, right? Even though the taxes get sent in twice a year, it's getting paid on their mortgage. If you're looking at $20 a month, you know, to come up with $600 a year, you know, for an average household, for example, that's a number that $20 a month is probably doable to a lot of people versus throwing out the $600 number, right?
Yeah, I agree. And if we do the compromise, like I'm saying, it's gonna go from 600 to 550, 500. And, you know, we can put that, the price tag of $20 a month on, you get arts in your schools, you have
Keep our police department.
proper police department, you get your
The library
road,
functions.
your library functions, and you get your roads plowed.
Yeah.
And town hall stays open.
And town hall stays open, yeah. I'll stop, I'll go.
And the library keeps its hours. I mean, we have good services in this town, and I think people are willing to pay $20 to $40 a month, you know, to keep them.
I think a middle path, but just for looking at like 8%, 4% overrides, I think a middle path has some merit. I think we need to get a little bit more in the weeds of exactly what that looks like and exactly what an assumption about, let's say we decide, all right, it's gonna be, for the ones we were cutting 5% from last year, it's gonna be flat from last year, I'm just making that up. Like, okay, what does that actually look like? What does it actually foot to? Does that accomplish what we want? Are there still some budgets, like we still have, you know, the town clerk, there are extra elections, like that can't be flat. So like, we gotta go in and make some of those adjustments. But that would be, I'd love to see, Becky, a couple of more nuanced scenarios. Because I think what we've done now has helped frame out the boundaries. And now I think, at least I'd like to see a little bit more nuance within those boundaries of what does this look like, what does that look like, where the override probably lands somewhere between that 4% and 8%.
Yep. And we could, you know, just looking at the FY26 numbers, right? So let's say we took FY26 and said that the base is that everybody gets last year's numbers, and then we go in and we adjust the school to be what we know the school is going to have to be at the 9.98% if we don't want to make drastic cuts, and we change what Frontier is and change what Franklin Tech is, we can get a pretty good idea of where that would land. So we should be able to do that, you know, very quickly.
And I think the risk is that, I think one of the risks of doing that middle ground is it does increase the likelihood, I mean, it increases the likelihood of a lot of things, but especially the scenario where we have another very flat expense growth next year to restrain and stay out of another override. Like, I think not taking the 5% hit now obviously helps a lot of those departments and areas, but I think it also increases the likelihood that we have to do something like that again, potentially. Like, we don't know what it's gonna look like, but.
And that's the balancing act. And
Right.
last year, we tried really hard to be able to not have an override because we already knew that this year was gonna be worse last year. We knew that ahead of time. And so, yeah, you can't have 2 overrides do 2 years in a row. And so we're hoping that with last year doing what we did, with this year, hopefully override passes, and we have to make sure it's enough that next year we can get away with 2.5% because
That's,
otherwise we don't pass one for 10 years.
Right.
You know, because the trust goes away, you know.
And then you go backwards for 10 years, like after 2009, your school gets crippled, you lose your students, and it takes another 16 years to build it back.
Yep. Doom and gloom is what we got. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So, piggybacking on Dylan's prior comment about getting into the weeds, you actually have some measure of exerting expense control over areas that are not assessed. So you're removing Franklin Tech, you're removing Frontier, you're removing SCEMS, you're removing South County Senior, unless you get majority of the other towns involved in those assessments to adjust that budget. Sunderland has 1 vote only, that's all you get. So your expense lines are gonna fall into your departments in general government and your elementary school. That's it. That's all you can scrub. You can ask the other places, but you can't scrub.
Right. And that's, that's the feedback we've received of the 5%, and now
Yeah.
we can look at something in the middle, or, and I think, but to your point, that's not swinging millions of dollars around.
No, it's not.
It's not even swinging quarters of millions of dollars around. Like, we're getting down into the weeds of like 5.5 or 5% override, or 6.5 or 6. Like, it's, 25, 50 basis points is the range.
So do we want to start going department by department and figuring out what our numbers are? Do we want to put that off until next week when we have more updated numbers?
On
and
Monday,
scenarios?
we'd get some information from Senior Center, which is the only piece that we're still waiting to hear, and it may not be anything different.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, do you think we still have time to put that all together on Tuesday, if we wait till Tuesday to do this? I mean, Becky could run 3 scenarios if we give her what we want to see. So we wouldn't have to start from scratch. We could just, all right, this department A, B, or C, this department A, B, or C. Like, we could actually do it in a menu way where we see the numbers versus this philosophical up or down.
And that's why I'm kind of leaning towards aiming to do that on Tuesdays, because either we're trying to do that live right here, or we give Becky a week to do that, and then by next Tuesday, we actually have, like, here's the couple options. And maybe you and I try to connect with her as much as we can this week.
Yeah, and the thing is with, when we look at South County Senior Center, we don't know this budget line here for South County Senior Center, if that's true or not. Because Whately could vote it down, Deerfield could vote it down, Sunderland could vote it down, and then that number is much less than that.
Drop 75.
Which is largely what Monday's about, is to have those conversations and figure
Well,
out
we
what.
don't know that it's gonna be Monday yet, do we?
I'm trying to find out. That, I didn't tell them that because I was trying to find out.
Okay.
all right, so I'm just looking through here.
What was
Tell
that
us
thing
what.
Sunday?
We'll talk about it.
All right, so it sounds like what we're saying is that the next step in order to nail that actually down is to be able to have a couple of mock budgets of this is what 6% looks like, this is what 7% looks like, this is what 4% looks like.
The only changes that I see from 26 to 27 is the police department, fire department, and the highway, and then the town office part, which is solar.
And the town clerk.
The building energy solar, I wasn't sure what that was.
So we went up from 75 to 100. You said we've been spending 100, so we can keep it at 75 and have a bad budget, but that's not really
Yeah.
spending 75.
So it's really just those three departments that we really need to focus
Well,
on.
in the library.
And the
In the
library.
library.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
how are you guys handling energy contingency in that line?
There's
fine,
an
it's risky.
energy contingency lines dribbled through the budget,
Okay.
that the library stopped using theirs. So I've been trying to reevaluate, given the cost this year are a little bit less than last year.
Yep.
I'm still working on it.
In budget cycles past, when you move something from buildings, oftentimes you stick a little bit in energy contingency because energy is what it is. And the variety of square feet of buildings and type that the town actually operates, you don't want that to become a deficit spend or a shift at the end of the year.
Right, and that's what we had last year, was deficit. And I'm trying to avoid that.
Right.
Was there any conversation we wanted to have on the revenue side of things? I know you had prepared an updated spreadsheet, or at least my understanding that you had.
No, I didn't do another one. I did the one we talked about last week.
Okay, that was okay. Is there any discussion on the revenue side? I mean, we don't have a lot of levers on that side, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we talked about last night, I'm still worried that we won't generate as much free cash when we certified this year as before. So I think that gives me some pause about how much free cash to use, although I don't think 250 is a bad number, but we just might have to lower that next year, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some opportunities on the revenue side. I need to learn more around what the finance committee can help do, which I think revenues is where our focus really ought to be.
Yep, agreed.
I'd love to work more with Heather. I spent some time with her today about the treasury function of like, where's our money, what does it earn, what are our flexibility, what are our options. I learned a lot about OPEB and what our account balance was, which is great. It was higher than we thought. It's like 570,000. So yeah, I mean, I think but none of that is relevant to the FY27 budget and the town meeting that's coming up.
Yeah.
But it, just to get away from some of the doom and gloom, I think there's opportunities for us to improve our efficiency, and I think the biggest thing is there's real opportunities for us to collectively work more proactively. Anyone who's ever been on a committee, especially in government, like a lot of time things are under the gun, and you're just kind of dealing with incoming, and it's really hard. And that's why we've carved out all these meetings so that we don't have to do this live fire thing now, and Becky can take some time, for example, put together some nuanced budgets and we can make some selections. Like, we didn't do that last year, right? So I do see some optimism in the way that we can work together, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's
Yeah,
my
I think there's a
comment
real
on that.
opportunity moving forward to have like really strategic conversations during non-budget season to really figure out where our gaps are, what do we need to do, and what can we refine. I also have questions about how things are being assessed, and are they being assessed like equitable on the property value side, or is it being assessed on like when it was sold versus if something was sold 40 years ago versus 2 years ago? Are those property values equal, because they arguably should be? And is that money that we're potentially leaving on the table there?
I think these are all absolutely, and in fact, I would go one step further and say that there shouldn't be a off-budget season in an era
I meant like
right
not
now.
in this like.
No, I know, and not to be like calling out, but just to say
Yeah.
like, we need to stop thinking of it as, oh, it's off-budget season. No, it's always budget season when you have this kind of budget, because, to be honest, if we had started having harder conversations about this in like July of last year, we could have been in a much better position now. And maybe that's the thing that we start to do is, and I know that a lot of it is driven by when the recap happens, when the free cash is certified. There's things we can't control, but there are a lot, especially on the revenue side of things, lots of things we can be talking about over the summer, in the fall, in the late spring.
Yeah.
So, wonderful. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we don't really have a lot to talk about on the revenue side because we just don't right now.
I think the numbers are pretty good. I mean, if we get any more updates on local receipts, I know we talked about the one from last week, like will there be a little bit of money there? Like, I don't know if we'll look into that further, if that's something we add now or just receive it and then it's a next year's cycle. But outside of that, I think the revenues seem pretty good. Does anyone else, any ideas on the revenue side? Or?
I think it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's much for it. I think it's more,
Yeah.
that's the long game.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like our plan for next week is to, by Tuesday's meeting, have a handful of, this is what, this is a budget with, all these cuts and all these numbers, and here's another budget. Hopefully we can get a couple, 2 or 3 put together. And as I said, I will reach out to you and see if I can help with that process.
Are we asking for like a 6 and an 8? Like, what are the numbers that we're asking for in terms of potential overrides?
I think we should calculate it and then see what we can do with getting the percentage down through base funding certain offices for the FY26.
What I'm imagining in my head is less about like trying to hit 6% or 8% and more about like one that's like only just sort of taking out anything that we could look at and say, yeah, that can just be fluff. Like any increases, anything that was like, hey, this is an extra initiative. Because that first budget did have a couple of things in it that were like, I know you said level of services, but we want to add this or we want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher number would be basically what they asked for with anything that we can take out that we consider just to be like, that wasn't necessary. I know that that's a very charged thing to say about anything, but that's the high line.
I mean, I would throw out, just to try to make this functionally doable for Becky and me, like, as my head wraps around this, is for any particular budget that can change, so not the schools, that is what it is based on the revised numbers. So highway, there's what he requested, there's the 5% from last year's cut, flat to last year. We sit down, which of these 3 do we want to do and why? Pick the number. If he wants to reallocate with which one we pick, that's for him to do, right? And there's flat to 26. And so for the 6 or 8 or 10, however many different, inspector and town clerk, go through and pick each one of those. And then whatever that, but each of those selections and all the other ones that are set, that would budget, in my mind, would be where we would be.
Yep.
Yeah. I think if we did flat on everything except what things we can't control, we're talking about $80,000.
Yeah.
Flat 26.
From the flat, getting flat 26 to what they proposed for 27, about 80,000.
Joe?
Which is.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just an aside, you guys were talking a little bit about the future and where we're headed. I also think maybe budget updates quarterly or half or semi-annually from each department, like what percent have you spent already? Just get ahead of the curve of where they're at, if there's going to be a surplus or a deficit in each budget at the end of the year. We do that at the collaborative every time we meet.
I don't think we're there yet. I know the people at the budget level are doing this work, and ultimately, but like, we have way more strategic processes I think we need to organize between budget cycles.
Yep.
As important as variances are, like, I don't know, I don't think we're there yet. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I don't think we're there yet either. I think it's a great goal that long term we have some more of that when we're at more of a strategic place, but we need to still wrap our brain around what's happening in the revenue side year over year to really put ourselves in a position where we can take that data and synthesize it and have it have some sort of impact on what we're doing.
Like, I'll give you an example, Joe. Like, as much as I'd like to understand quarterly budget variances, I'd much rather have the finance committee have a call with our OPEB investment manager. Do we have an investment policy statement? What does our portfolio look like? What are our options? What are your fees? Like, these are things we don't have answers to that are very fundamental.
Right.
So, like, this is the benefit of low-hanging fruit, is it's low.
Yeah.
Hopefully next year there won't be so much low-hanging fruit to work on.
Mentioned at a past meeting about like missing grant opportunities because of big bandwidth. I don't know if there are things that we can go for.
I mean,
Well,
there
we're
are.
a big one right now.
You are? Okay.
Well, I'm not, but I've, the group spearheaded by the Conservation Committee, they're putting in a MVP grant to do drainage studies in the floodplain. And it's a critical study, and they're hoping, if they get the grant, we're not required to make a match.
Which is a little bit about this last week.
Got the letter on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
So that would be helpful.
and the grant thing, it's a tough one, it's a catch-22, because like we've, in the past, looked to see if we could maybe split a grant person with a couple other towns. Because typically, the salary you would pay somebody to work on grants, they're gonna be bringing in more than that.
Yeah.
But we can't get to the place where we can have the money sitting in our budget to hire a grant place, or, you know,
Yeah.
because
And
it's not gonna be a full-time job here in Sunderland, right?
And you'd be paying in 1 year for grants that wouldn't be applying to budgets until a couple of years down the line. The short answer is there's piles of money on the table out there if you have grant writers who can write them. Unfortunately, our town is also small enough that like the number of different grants we could actually qualify for, because we have work that would follow those buckets, or we meet the demographics or whatever, is a much smaller slice of the pie than like Boston would have necessarily. So it's not like we could get Boston level grants if we had like amazing grant writing team. But to Crystal's point, every grant writer I've ever known has brought more money in than they cost, and so it is definitely something we could look into. On that same note, though, the FERCOG, the Franklin County Regional Council of Governments, they do have grant writers, and they came around 2 or 3 years ago to ask us our priorities, because what they're trying to do is say, hey, we have 27 towns. If 6 of them all are saying, hey, we need a new library, can we do a giant grant kind of thing? So there is some movement on that. It's really, again, this is a small town. It's hard to find grants and projects that line up. And one of the other concerns we also sometimes have is, especially with building grants, is when you accept a building grant, the building gets twice as expensive, because you're using the Boston-based architect, and you're using this and using that and all these other things. And so you have a $2 million project, they give you $1.5 million, but now it's a $3 million project. So like, is it worth it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We are applying for a number of grants, complete street grants, things like that, things that do make sense for the town. But yeah, there's always room for that. And I would hope that every department and board member feels encouraged to pursue those grants on behalf of the town in the preliminary sense. No, you can't go sign for one without talking to the select board about that, but like, definitely go looking for grants and applying for grants if you feel that there are some out there, or at the very least bring them to the attention of Becky or other folks.
And now, how would a citizen know what types of things the town might be prioritizing if they know of a grant track or program? Like, because you don't want to just do only the things that have available grants, because then you're not really self-selecting your strategic priorities. How do we go about coming up with our short list of what we'd like to do if we could find funding? And I know there's some things that are obvious we talk about all the time, but like within the capital committee or within other committees, how do we share that information so somebody could try to help us or work on that?
It's a very good question. One of the things that a town of our size struggles with is we don't have like a IT department that stands up a website and does regular updates to whatever, that we have. Sorry. Okay. Dan, do you want to jump in there?
Oh, no, I was just gonna let you finish, but I just wanted to say the big push I'm hearing is the unrestricted government aid. There's a lot of lobbying, a lot of people talking about trying to increase that. So I would encourage everybody to learn what unrestricted government aid is from the state and lobby to get more, because I know there's a big push for it. So that would help us a lot. Because that way we don't have to worry about what grant, we just get to unrestricted government aid that we can use wherever we want.
Mm-hmm. That's the good money.
No, very good point, Dan, thank you.
But it's also been very limited and hasn't grown a whole lot.
No, I know. There's a big push, so I'm just letting everybody know.
To help it grow, but it's the only unrestricted pop you get. The rest is for the schools are specifically assessed for departments.
So to finish my answer, I don't know that we necessarily have a great pipeline for like posting this on our website or something. I mean, we could look into that. We always do have the option of looking into that. What I would say is that more of an opt-out or opt-in rather than opt-out thing. Like if you are a person in the community who's interested in helping us out, reach out to myself, reach out to Becky, reach out to somebody on one of the committees, and we'll be happy to tell you the things that we could use some help with. And the information is available, just not necessarily easy to find if you're a private citizen.
Well, they've just recently tried to change there's a new thing called Eco One grants, where they've taken the MVP grants and some of their bigger road grants and everything and put them in one pot. So so that
One
it's
stop.
a centralized application. Yeah, the one stop.
Yeah, one stop,
That's-
that's right. So that's a website you can look at, you can see them all.
And you sort of inadvertently raise a good point, which is that there is also a certain amount of economic disparity in the grant process within the state as well. Larger towns have the resources to gobble up a lot more of the money, and smaller towns don't have the resources to be able to apply for and get the grants, and so you end up with, once again, a disparity there.
Well, I'm interested in helping if there's something I can do, so, and I can certainly communicate with the finance committee to whatever extent we can be supportive, but, you know, I think this is an important part of what we can do. It'll help us refine our, even if we don't find a grant for something, it'll help us refine our priorities about what we're trying to do.
Yep.
And if we do find a school roof grant, that would be even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, especially an unrestricted one, that doesn't come with a whole bunch of.
Without using the Boston contractors.
Yes. Hey, no offense to them, just, I like the price of that hammer. All right, we kind of got off all things of a tangent there.
Yes.
Is there anything else that we have in front of us today, or are we ready to move on till next week?
Becky, do you feel comfortable with where we're gonna be next week and what we still need to do?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay,
And I do too.
wonderful.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the finance committee.
Second?
All those in favor?
I
All right.
Aye, Joe, I don't think we have to do that though, but
Take it away.
we opened without a vote.
No, we did actually.
No,
You know,
Valve
okay.
open,
Okay.
Well,
should be forced out.
Yes.
Can somebody clarify next week's meeting schedule?
Yeah.
Yes, so, that's a very good question.
Monday is
Yes.
a question mark, that's what, yeah, before you guys leave,
Yeah, we need to talk about Monday.
yeah, Monday, I had been, yeah, I think Val and I both understood it was on the 23rd, that's what she had considered. Crystal had thought it was on the 30th, and now we're hearing that it is the 30th.
It is scheduled for the 30th, not the
And I don't
23rd.
know when it, I missed
So,
it.
right now, and I'd like to thank Tim Hilchey. He is trying to get a hold of everybody to see if they can get it changed to the 23rd. But, yeah. it was
Is
good.
that,
Yeah,
He's
the
trying to
two
get
South
it.
County budgets that we were supposed to.
South County
the
EMS,
30th
South
is
County
too
Senior
late.
Center,
It's
Whately, Finance and Select Board, South Deerfield Finance and Select Board. Tim Helchey has been amazing all night trying to get a hold of all these people to get it scheduled for Monday, the 23rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a chat with Jennifer to get her on board.
Oh, good.
so,
Thank you, Dan.
procedurally, Becky, post a meeting for the select board for Monday either way,
Yeah.
and if we end up that
Yeah.
we can't meet because it end up falling through, well, great, we have an extra day for us to sit down and talk about stuff, and I would assume the finance
Yes.
committee feels the
Right.
same way.
We
But
want that also.
So,
The
to answer,
30th's too late.
Yeah.
No, I know, I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
either way,
We can-
6:30, we're gonna meet, whether we're meeting over there or we're meeting here, we are gonna meet on Monday at 6:30.
to answer your
Is
question,
it
on
6 or
Monday, we are either
6:30?
meeting here at 6:30 or we have a joint
That's a good question, so
meeting
we should
with
probably post it for
Whately
6.
and Deerfield,
Because we
that's
can start
not in the
late, but we
senior
can't
center,
start
which
early.
would not be happening here. And then we're also
I
meeting
don't know what
Tuesday
the
and Wednesday
time
of
was
next
for it.
week to finalize.
Well, as
all this.
necessary, we've
Those
scheduled
are the
3.
scheduled.
If we need all of
So
them
I'll
to
schedule
get to
two
our
6
final.
o'clock
And
meetings.
they're all 6:30.
They're all,
Yes.
but we need to get to our
No.
numbers by the
Here and
25th,
one
that's
for
our,
Deerfield.
Dropped in.
Just
That's our-
locations.
Great, thank you.
Great
Right.
question,
Right.
thank you for
Right.
asking.
So I'll just do
So we
And then we
need, so we
can
need,
retract
we need
one of
meetings
those.
wasn't for
Or I
Monday,
can just
Tuesday,
do
and
the-
Wednesday.
yes, and Becky's already posted Tuesday, Wednesday, and now she's also gonna post Monday.
Just in case.
Just in case, yeah.
So either way, we're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The question is whether we're gonna be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday all here, or Monday over there, and Tuesday, Wednesday over here. But either way,
Yes.
we
And
see a
I
lot of
believe-
each other.
It's 6 o'clock.
We'll
Gonna
get
bring
a
the
carpool.
pizza. You imagine you don't have this many meetings without
The
pizza.
If the senior center goes, it's 6 o'clock.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, I believe it's 6 o'clock
On the 30th.
whenever the one in Deerfield ends up.
Okay,
Whether it's the 23rd or the 30th.
that's fine.
But yeah, no, the 30th is gonna be a problem because, like, you have to actually have the warrant article on the 27th, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to go with some number there, and that makes it a little bit difficult. So, if you talk to Tim, thank him for me, please.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
I couldn't.
You don't adjourn, so don't have to read it.
Thank you both, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Just-
Just back to
The
our,
library just voted the same thing, so.
okay,
Dylan is a great vice chair.
all right.
397?
That's all the select board's new business. We don't have any correspondence today. Any public comment from anybody? We're gonna start on the Zoom. Anyone on Zoom have public comment they wanna make before we end? All right, not hearing anyone on Zoom. Anyone in person have any questions or public comment? You good?
You just mentioned a lot of numbers with the impact on the taxpayers, so I just want to make sure I understand that correctly. So the 8% override would be an increase of 400 essentially on the tax bill? Is that correct?
Approximately.
Right around there?
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what the 4% would be, since you said it's going to be probably a range?
It'd be half of that, so
Okay.
200, yeah, it scales.
But that's on the average house in town,
Right.
not the most expensive house in
Right.
town versus.
Our confidence level on that number is like plus or minus like 30%. It's a pretty big range there,
That's
but
what
that's
words
a
like
good
roughly
place.
come in.
Yeah,
And
I would
is that the
definitely.
average or the
Use
median?
that a lot.
I think
I
he said it
think
was
you
the
said the
median.
median,
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
So
So for the paper, that matters.
that does, yeah. But I would definitely emphasize that that's a very rough, not
Yes.
definitive number
Yeah, don't worry.
for
So,
display
right, so I
purposes.
think, you could use it on a $5,000 a year tax bill, we would be looking at.
So the number I think you would want for that would be $5,105 is the median tax bill in Sunderland. So if that goes up by 10%, well, that's an extra $500. If it goes up by 1%, next just an extra $50. So that will, or $51. That'll give you an idea for,
Perfect, thank
yeah.
you.
Excellent. All right. That is all of our public comment. We do not have an executive session. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second, Dan Levy. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we have 3-0. Time is 7:57. Thank you, everybody.